Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Shift. This week's guest is the amazing Hannah Burner. I'm so excited. For any new listeners or watchers, I don't know what you call people who watch this on YouTube, so I'm going to call you watchers, but every episode is up a week early on the Patreon, so Patreon.com/The Shift Podcast, and I put solo episodes where I talk about my private life, and then also just like movies that I watch, which is fun. You know, I'll be like talking in depthly about like After Sun, that I'm not putting that like emotionalness experience on the real platform.
It's OnlyFans for movie buffs.
Yeah, I'm like, this made me cry. So please sign up to the Patreon.com/The Shift Podcast, rate, review, and then what was else about the Patreon that I was meant to say? I can't remember now. Oh, no, I can't remember. But yeah, rate, review, and all that, and even just put this up on your background if you want to. But other than that, welcome, Hannah Burner.
Okay, housekeeping. Look at you, so organized with the admin.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
I know. Thanks for being here. This is so exciting.
I'm so
happy.
excited. I'm excited to expose my sex life with Des Bishop.
Which I specifically was like, we don't have to talk about Des. And Hannah was like, we'll give the people what they want.
No, I think it's funny to call out that the podcast originated from you two. Yeah. When I think I first met him, you guys were doing it, right?
Yeah.
So we were like weirdly connected. Like I kind of knew you, and I don't know. It's a beautiful little.
It's also
circle.
nice as well because I feel like because you guys met in the pandemic, so it's not like if you hadn't met before. You know, me and Des would have been doing the podcast in real life. Mm-hmm. We would have met. You know, through that we would have like had tea or but then there was like a whole space of time where people weren't allowed to meet up with people. Me and Des weren't in each other's bubbles or whatever. You guys were out in the Hamptons.
Yeah.
So then when me and you started meeting each other and getting to know each other, it was outside of Des because it was at like New York Comedy Club. So
yes.
I feel like hosting, and I have to say one thing that I loved about you was I remember there was one night and all the comics who were kind of like, I don't know, like that had worked that you hadn't worked at this room yet. This was your first time working that room.
Yeah.
And so all the comics who were like kind of have like a bit of a chip on their shoulder, a bit of whatever, would say like, I need to go up at this time. But then they were like running the light and they worked there. So I knew that they knew. And then you ran the light, but you didn't see. And I said to the producer, I was like, did you show her where the light is? I don't think she's worked there. And he was like, no. So I give you my light and you got off, and it was only like literally a minute, but you were like so nice about it. You're like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, oh my God, it was like literally a minute. You're totally fine. And then all these guys who worked there who were like were like running it by 5 minutes, asking to go up early.
I feel like that's so women in comedy. Like I'm like, I am so sorry that I went over by 45 seconds. I ruined the show. What can I do for you? I'll pay you $100. I am so sorry. But you know what it is? I think, I definitely didn't know where the light was. And then when you see the light, you think, oh my God, how long have I been up here? Panic. You start looking around and in your head, you're like, did I do an hour accidentally? But
that happened to me recently where I ended up doing like 25 minutes hosting in New York. And I was like, this feels like the longest set to host. What's going on? And then they gave me like the light, but they put it on a different guy who wasn't meant to be the first guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. And so I brought him up, but then I got off and I saw and I go, oh my God, was that like the extra light? Like had the bulb broke? Did I run? And then when I came out, they were like, oh no, the first comic just didn't come. So you had to just stay on there forever.
That happens with hosts sometimes. Like they're like, they just keep going. Do you ever see like a red light just in the normal world and get triggered? Yeah. Like, you're like, I gotta get off stage. But the thing with comedy is there's no rules except don't run the light. Yeah. So when you start comedy, it's like the only big red flag. And when I first started, I was so scared of running the light that whenever the light would go on, I would like get off, and they're like, no, like that means you have a couple minutes. And I'm like, but I don't know my jokes enough to know, like it's an art to be able to like have the light, know the light. And sometimes you do 10, sometimes you do 12, sometimes. So it's an art form.
Yeah.
But I have a big fear of running the light because like whenever someone does, all the comics are like, they're fucking running the light. They're the worst. They should, be canceled.
But all those comics are the ones then that run the light.
Yeah.
Like every time I've seen a comic complain about someone running the light, they've gone up and run the light. Like, I mean, the levels of narcissism in this job. I'm like, what just happened?
Also, like, you love telling jokes that much that you're like, I need to get these 3 minutes, even though everyone's going to be mad at me for like 2 months.
Yeah, it's either like, that they're like killing and they're enjoying it too much, which is like, sort of like selfish. Like, you're like, you're booked, you're fine. You're going to be on, you're literally on the 11 p.m. as well. Like, calm down. And then, or it's like they're bombing and
No,
they're trying to
that
get
is
out.
the
And I'm like,
worst.
I'm looking at the audience being like, fucking laugh so this comic will get off
I
stage.
saw someone like start a joke after being lit like 4 minutes ago. Start a joke like, isn't religion crazy? And I'm like, are we about to unpack all of religion when like you've already ran the light? Like, where could this go? But yeah, when people keep trying to get a laugh and then it's almost like the crowd can feel your attention that you're trying to get a laugh and it's like, this might never happen.
No, or when they get the light and then they go into crowd work, I'm like, oh
no.
God. Because like sometimes it's like, oh, it could be just like but it's a lot of the time it's like, oh, so are you guys dating? And it's like, we don't know how long they're going to explain about how they did, for God's sake.
Yeah, you don't know where this is going to go. Crowd work can take forever. I've done the like, got the light and got off and the host is like smoking weed in the other room like all the time. I just leave. I just go, thanks. And I walk on.
You're dead right. I take my job so like,
oh yeah, as a
overly-
host, you like have all these OCD things to make sure that you don't fuck up, which is like, honestly, you are great at your job.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll stay in the room because a lot of the time as well, if it's something like if it's like a comic who I know all the time is just doing their regular bits and I don't need to stay in the room or whatever. But a lot of the time I'll stay in because sometimes the comics will talk to me on stage. Remember that time you did
we
that?
had a fun little thing.
And that happens a lot where like someone will be like, oh, Katie, did that guy or something, or I have to keep an eye as well. If someone's like talking, then I want to go up and be like, hey, I know you were trying to have fun, but like,
yes.
so because I feel like that's like part of my job.
Hosting is like, there's a reason you get paid more.
Yeah.
Because the hosts really do like create the vibe. They're like the glue. They let everyone know that like it's okay to be ourselves tonight.
Yeah,
Forget about our problems.
Yeah.
But I do love when comics will like bomb and be like, yeah, the fucking host did not warm him up. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, let's not.
This comic bombed once, and then I went to a party afterwards. It was just like a group of people drinking, but they were like very low. And I was just talking and they were like, oh, I had a bad set. And then they go, did you just do all crowd work? And I go, you literally saw the last 2 minutes of my set because you were definitely in the room when I got a light, I was doing jokes.
Also,
and then he was
who cares if you did all crowd work?
But then he was like, oh, okay. But I knew because he was trying to justify because I'm sure if he was like, well, then there were two chat, like whatever. No, bitch, I didn't. You saw me on stage doing just
there's
jokes.
There's a billion reasons why people can bomb.
Yeah. And it's on you.
Yeah, but some hosts get really paranoid. Like they'll be like, do you think I did good? Like the crowd is good. I'm like, you don't need to put that all on your shoulders. You really don't.
But that's greenness.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, which is totally fine. I do feel like, it's crazy how you don't realize that it's just time lets you feel like secure. And because, now I'm like, if someone was just kind of like trying to blame me, I'd feel secure enough to be like, I'd just be like smile or whatever. But if it was like a few years ago, I'd want the like validation, like, oh no, I tried my best. You know what I mean? I'd be kind of like, but it's lovely how time or just age even.
You just get tired. I
don't care. You blame me if you want. If that
mental health moment for sure though. Like I realize so much of life is distorted by like the story you choose to tell yourself. Mm-hmm. Like after a conversation, how many times have you been like, I'm so awkward, that was horrible, I'm so weird, when they didn't feel that way, but you then kept that with yourself and made it part of your identity when it literally wasn't real. Even sometimes with comedy, you ever like have a set and you're like, oh, that was so awkward when I said that, and then you rewatch it and you realize the audience did not feel that way, and you literally lied to yourself. Like your brain plays so many tricks on you, and especially with relationships with other people. So it's like you can actually, once I learned that you can choose to not be hard on yourself or not like stir up shit in your brain, like life becomes a lot easier. Because I thought I had to be on top of everything and make sure everyone's happy, and then you realize like you're gonna lose regardless. Are you happy?
Yeah, no, that's amazing advice.
No, thanks. I've been in some therapy recently.
Me too. And I do think that's like, I think a lot of people who go into comedy have all those like in their head, and I have so many people be like, I said this, do you think that? And I'm like, no, especially with comedians, they're so in their head themselves. They're focusing on what they said, not what you said.
But you're so right that comics are similar in that way, because I was a tennis player, and my biggest fault as a tennis player was like I had so much going on in my head, and I was so aware of everything around me, and the best tennis players were really like I don't want to say dumb jocks, but they were like so good at getting in the zone where I always was like, okay, that person just left. I think that person thinks I suck. I think that girl just cheated me. And why is that ref doing that? But that's what makes me so good at comedy, because I'll be like doing a joke. I know exactly what's going on over there. I have 4 jokes lined up. I'm changing the jokes in my head. So it's like use what's bad in one career could be good for another career. Because if we all weren't like insanely overly have too many voices in our head, we couldn't be comics.
Yeah, it's all ADHD. Yeah. I've said this on the podcast a lot, but the more I learn up, you know what's so funny? So I was told as a kid it was ADD, that I probably had ADD, and my parents were like, no, she's just like really hyper. So now it's ADHD, and it's like, oh, maybe if I had been ADHD at the time, maybe they would have been like, oh yeah, but
they say with women it shows differently. Like boys were like, you know, throwing things and like chucking themselves like all over the classroom, where girls it could be more internal sometimes,
just like zoning out the window.
Yeah,
I would miss a whole class. My concept of time, I would just zone out and then be like, and there's so many.
But you're like exhausted afterwards because you were like fighting many battles.
I was daydreaming. I was in a different dimension.
Yeah.
But like, and it's funny because I thought like myself loads of coping mechanisms, like, because I'd have friends growing up who'd be like, you're not listening. So I'd be like, oh, I'm not. So then I'd like make extreme, and I'd be repeating the words that they said in my head so that I'd make sure I'd respond properly. And now it's like really natural. But I recently was out for dinner with my friends, and one of the girls was talking, and I was just like looking at her, and I was probably like staring, and she was like, what are you staring at? And I was like, I am active listening. Do you want me to interrupt you? And she was like, I think I would feel more comfortable if you did do that, because
she's like, look away from me when I talk to you. I feel like I'm an active listener where I'll say like yes and I'll nod so much during it, and then I realize other people don't do that, but I think it's because I have to literally like tell myself. Also, they say that people with ADHD interrupt people more, which I'm working on, but I do it because if I don't say it, I'll forget it. And then if I pause after you talk to me, it means I wasn't listening.
Yeah.
No. If I don't interrupt you, I wasn't listening.
It's so true about that. That's something I've had to work on, where I'm like, okay, they've said this and I want to remember okay, Batman, but now they're
changing.
Oh God, don't forget about Batman. Oh, but hear what they're saying now. Okay, but now they're talking about the sun. And I'm like,
especially podcast. But also that's very like New York culture. I feel like it's just you talk on top of people, and that's how you get your point across. You just talk at the same time, and that means we're having a conversation.
Yeah. That was so funny because I was with my friend once, and we were trying to talk about how, like, because I had said to someone like about how like, oh, I was like, oh, you cut me off, and they took it as like an insult, but I didn't mean it as an insult. And then I was talking to my friend, and as I was saying like, oh, I didn't mean it as it, she was like, we always cut each other off. Cut me off while saying it.
It's a compliment if I cut you off. That means I'm fucking into the conversation. Yeah, and also like, sometimes I'm like, we know what you were gonna say. Like I know the last couple words. We know where that was gonna go. We have shit to say. But yeah, it is good chemistry, I think, when two people like are just vibing and not worried about, you know, being polite during a conversation.
What you said about mental health was interesting as well, because I feel like your podcast is very mental health based.
Yeah.
What kind of got you to that point? Because like, okay, so I know that you were writing jokes for a long time before you did stand up, and then you did the reality show, and then you moved into stand up. And it's so funny because like I feel like for you probably are like, oh, people know me in Ireland because of Des, but like all of my friends knew you before Des.
Okay, don't make my head big.
Yeah, no, they love you. They're like, so, oh my God.
Stop.
They were like texting me for like a year being like, when are you gonna get Hannah on? And I was like, I'm gonna wait till I have a studio, you know, I want it to be professional. And then someone was like, recently.
Also, do you realize I'm like a piece of shit? Like I would have done.
You would have over with mantra.
I would have done it outside, anywhere. I would have done it anywhere. But thank you for spoiling me with this beautiful studio. But it's funny because I really want to be an honorary Irish person. Like it's such a big part of my life now. I think Irish people are so funny. Also, I think they're so good looking, and I just like love Irish people. But I grew up in Brooklyn and Park Slope, where it was predominantly Jewish and Irish American.
Okay.
So all my best friends growing up, my boyfriends, they were all Irish American. Yeah. So I kind of always wanted to be with an Irish American.
Are you Jewish?
I'm 25% Jewish.
And what's the other 75%?
I'm half Italian and then just like Russian, German, Austrian,
I thought
Polish.
You were Italian.
I'm very New York.
Yeah, you give me very like, yeah.
I'm just
New
like
York
pure
energy.
New York bred. But I always loved an Irish American man.
Yeah.
But then Des has brought me to Ireland, and I fucking fell in love with it. So then when I'm with you, I'm kind of like just two Irish girlies, you know. But I also think a sense of humor in Ireland and the UK is like, I really like it. I like the sarcasm, I like the wittiness, and I like the self-deprecation. But long story short, mental health I've dealt with a lot, like as an athlete, in terms of like I had performance anxiety and I thought I was crazy because like I would like forget how to do certain things and freeze from anxiety. But sports, you're just taught to like never be nervous, just show up, be so strong all the time. So then when I started working for Betches, that was where I was like writing memes and tweets and writing comedy sketches. I started to meet all these like celebrities because they'd come in for interviews because Betches had this big following. So I'd meet these singers and these reality TV stars. And I was always obsessed with like, if I'm successful, that means I'll be happy. Because when I won tennis matches, like everyone treated me better and I was happy. But I'd meet all these people who are really successful. And I was like, are they happy? Like, is life that simple? Like, is LeBron James the happiest person in the world? So I wanted to create a podcast where I talk to people that everyone looks up to about like the real shit, like their actual demons, like what keeps them up at night, like what they struggle with, to kind of, and it was almost for me selfishly to be like, what's the meaning of happiness? Like, has money made you happy? Has fame made you happy? And I've learned a fucking lot. And I've learned that everyone has like their own demons. And some people are so successful because they have such deep wounds and insecurities that they're trying to overcome. Mm-hmm. It's like whatever drives you, bitch. But yet some of the happiest people are the people that aren't like chasing fame and money because they just feel content in their life.
Sorry, if I'd gone to therapy 10 years ago, I think I'd just like live on a farm. Because when I go home now, I'm like, this is a nice life.
No, literally, you're like, why do we torture ourselves all the time? But it was fascinating.
The woman from Dragon's Den, I think is it called Dragon's Den here or is it Shark Tank?
Shark Tank.
She said that she picks, if someone comes in and they tell a story about how their father left as a child, she's like, I'm going to invest in that person.
Did Barbara Corcoran say that?
I think, is it the girl with the short hair and her kids are dyslexic?
Love my life.
Because she said
she's dyslexic too.
Yeah, she said that they have something to prove to the world. And then the woman talked about, well, how do you feel about your kids? Because you have money, so they're already going to have a leg up and they're not going to have that fighter. And she said, I was kind of happy that they had to struggle with dyslexia because it gave them something to overcome. Because she was like, of course I'm going to help them with money. I'm the parent. But I don't want them to just have everything given to them. And this overcoming this in school and having to like relearn like stuff with their brain. Anyway, she said that was like, I actually am happy that they had that. But she said she will invest. If you're like, yeah, my mom abandoned me at a truck stop, she's like, yeah, I'm putting my money in you.
That's fucking amazing. I also feel like I'm like that with dating too. Like I'm like, oh, you've been through stuff. Like you're so strong.
I know, it's so bad.
Do you want to help me? I can heal you.
I used to be like that. Like I remember I'd be dating people and Des would be like, that person's like crazy.
Well, Des has a weird like if a guy's tall or cute, I'm like, they're amazing. And Des sees them for them.
Yeah.
And he's a Scorpio energy where he has like weird psychic skills where he can tell people like a year later, I'll find out that they're not a nice person or something. And he told me like off the bat where I'm like, they're fine. I'm like naive in that way where I'm like, they make jokes. They're cool. But he is really good at reading people. I get distracted by like one joke. I'm like, they're hysterical.
Yeah. I always like people be like, oh, this person's really shady. And I'm like, oh, they're so nice to me. But then I always have to go, you know what, though? I like everybody. So I don't know if my opinion is very, very valued. But no, I like my boyfriend has like no trauma and like we're together 2 years. We live together. I mean, he has like little things like, you know, he struggles with like, you know, he says sometimes like he'll like overeat or like these little things like maybe.
Same.
But yeah, like normal, regular. He's not like.
It's called a Friday night, bitch.
Yeah, his parents are together and they like love him.
Yeah.
Like his mother sent me a cake for my special and I was like, what does this mean? Like, what is going on? I don't understand. My parents don't even know that I don't even talk to one of my parents. But yeah, it's actually really nice. It's nice not trying to like fix someone.
You're so right because we're not, you know, project managers. I'm not I'm not a babysitter. I do think that's why like Des was the first guy I was with who was like really fully whole on his own.
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel like, because guys are always cute in the beginning, but then like after 6 months, you're like, okay, there's a full like to-do list that we have with like your life and like what is the give and take here? Because like I'm not your mother and I'm not a caretaker. I never was. I make it very clear in the beginning. I'm not cleaning your room, not doing your laundry, and like I'll emotionally talk. Oh, Des is calling. Do you want him to say hi?
Oh yeah, say hi.
Wait,
that's so funny.
Des, you're on speaker. I'm on the shift.
Oh, you're on the shift. Oh, good for you.
You're on the pod. Do you want to say anything?
I'm officially on the pod.
Yeah, we're in the studio right now.
Listen, all the tricks that I ever tried on you, I discussed on the shift.
What?
That's crazy. What tricks are you talking about?
This is where I hone my skills.
Oh, did you do a FaceTime before you met? That's what I was like, you gotta do a phone call. You gotta do a phone call.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. That's actually good advice. I mean, I didn't suggest FaceTime. I'm not a big FaceTime guy.
Oh, it was a phone call.
I
You're
definitely
right.
was saying that you can weed out a lot of like waste of time dates by having like an initial phone call.
You dated people before me?
No, that was training. As I always say, that's called training. It's like going to the gym.
Well,
Yeah.
look at this guy
I had
right in on the pod.
I had a lot of training before my boyfriend.
Well, what a great
Training.
surprise drop in, Des. I'll call you after.
Okay, wonderful. Have a good time.
Bye. Wow, he
cute.
gave good advice too.
he like, I have to say, Des definitely did like change my life in a lot of ways because,
Don't give him that credit.
well, yeah, well, you know, and it's like, but I will say, like, when it comes to podcasts, because I was getting like regret the next morning doing the podcast, and I felt like it was, I had to be like so open and stuff like that, and that was like
Yeah.
a lot. But then it helped me like rid a lot of shame that I had with sex, and then through like all the people we interviewed and stuff, eventually led to like being with someone like my partner, because
That's so cool.
yeah, because like I had like loads of shame
And also, you're
sex.
with a guy who's kind of like, I know there's all these stereotypical scientific whatever that people say, but he's like, I'm a dude and I'm letting you know, like, you're good. You're human. I'm human.
Yeah.
I mean, Des and I, we hooked up the second day, like sex. But also, this was during COVID.
Oh yeah, so that's like the 10th date.
But like, I also hadn't been touched by a man in like 7 months.
Yeah.
And our first date, I was like really scared of COVID. Like he like offered me some of his like yogurt or something, and I was like, I can't. But we talked like the whole time. And the second date, we played golf. And then after that, I was like, can I see your house? Because like we were tallying stuff up. I was like ready. And so that was almost like a second date in the whatever. I'm trying to make sense of it. But I know the second we had sex, I gave him that like, I don't know. And he's like, shut the fuck up. Like, this is, look, we like each other. It's all good. But he's a no games.
Yeah.
And maybe doing the shift helped him to come to terms with, his own, I don't know.
I feel like he was probably always, he's a quite direct person.
He's a very direct.
Which is,
Oh my God. My favorite story of him is he like, early on, I was used to guys playing games, and like I'll play games, and I had my own intimacy issues where I'm like, I also was like, he's a comedian, this is gonna end badly, so I might as well have fun with it. And once he called me and he was just like, look, I like you, if you want to play games, that's cool, but I'm just not interested.
fair play.
I've
my
never,
God,
no
that's
one's
really
ever said that.
attractive.
My tail went between my legs. I immediately was like, he was vulnerable in that moment, and that was so hot. Because also, if I was wasting his time, then that was the moment where he could like get out of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, from that moment on, like the relationship was just serious, and I was used to guys who were both like wanting up each other and who likes who and can you trust me, I don't know, and he was just really upfront and himself, and it took confidence to say that. So anyway, that was hot.
Definitely. I feel like that's really hot when lads are vulnerable. When lads accept rejection, it's really hot as well, because like there was a girl my boyfriend had asked out, and she rejected, and he was like, oh, would you like to grab a coffee? She's a comedian as well, and she was like, I'm not like if it's like as a date thing, and he was like, it was as a date thing because he's so good, he's not going to gaslight her.
Yeah.
And then B was like, but I totally understand, and thank you for
That's
responding.
so hot. Suddenly you're like, do you want to go on a date?
Yeah. And then like we started dating, and then she was like telling me this, like she was like, it was really nice the way, and I was like, oh my God, that's like, I'm like, that's so attractive. It's like,
Yeah.
he didn't get her, but I find that attractive. It's like, oh, you're not a dickhead.
And also, he doesn't know the girl, so it's like it's not like this huge heartbreak. He's trying to get to know people.
Exactly.
And they say guys' biggest fear is rejection, and girls' biggest fear is getting murdered. So it's very funny, the correlation. But I do have to say, it was a green flag that like you were so close to Des, because there's some guys that like, not that they need a bunch of girlfriends, I think could be a red flag, but like having a girl like you who I respect being on a pod with someone and like having this like healthy relationship shows that like he's it's almost like a girl stamp of approval. Like if other girls are just cool being around him and spending that kind of intense time with him, like if he was a dick, you couldn't have made it like as long as you guys did.
Oh no, absolutely. No, I totally think it's really healthy when you see guys have like good female friendships.
Yeah.
And there was never 1 second that it even felt like there's
He's very protective.
Yeah, there's been so many guys that I've worked with where it's gone like, oh, ooh. You know, like, ooh.
Yeah.
And like, whereas as a naive woman, I'm always like giving everybody the benefit for the doubt.
Same.
And it never felt like that with Des. Do you know,
Oh
it
my God,
always
yeah.
felt like a big brother or like your cousin.
Even
like
how
your
he
Irish
talks about
American
you, like
cousin.
he cares about you so much and is very, he is like protective in a way. And I used to have roommates who were guys and we used to go out and girls would come up to them because they'd see me with the table of dudes because I literally was like a symbol, like these men are safe, which is like so weird. But they would like talk to me and I'd be like, yeah, he's cool. Stay away from him. He's cool. But yeah, the shift was such an interesting thing because I think I probably listened to some episodes too when I was first getting to meet him. I don't remember, but I was in like full stalk mode because we weren't with each other. So I had to be, but yeah, he's talking about like sex and stuff. So I think I didn't want to hear all of it. So it was like a thin line of like what you want to hear, what you don't. But anyway, shout out to Des.
Yeah, I think for you two as well, it's nice that you met during the pandemic. Whereas for other couples, the pandemic kind of ruined them. But for you guys, it gave that quality time, you know, without outside voices and just to get spend time with each other and not be distracted by like shows.
Yes. Well, I do think it was almost like the ultimate test. And if you can do that, it's like what we're doing now. I mean, we went from being together 24/7. We moved in after 2 months together. But it's like dog years, so times 7 during COVID. But now we're on the road all the time. We're like, he's in Ireland, but we got really good at communicating. Yeah. So like we talk on the phone so much during the day. It's almost like we're closer when we're away from each other. Like when we're in the same room, we're like watching TV. But when he travels and I travel, we have a good like way of doing it. I mean, you know, as being with another comic, like the schedule's not ideal for like the traditional lifestyle of a woman and a man. We're not like getting home at night and like, you know, cooking dinner together. Like he's waking up to go do the cellar at 2 a.m. He's been sleeping all night. So we like get brunch together. We just have to navigate it in unique ways.
I do love it. I love it. Like my boyfriend will travel a lot because also his like side job is like photography booth or something.
Yeah. Not important. But.
Yeah. I kind of understand.
He has a little game that he does.
But I love it because we live together and then he goes away and then I go away. But it's also like time to miss each other. Yeah. And then like when you're, you know, you make the effort then when you're back. And yeah, so I do like that we get to try. And I like the independence as well. And I like having the apartment to myself sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And my cat loves me more. So I get all this attention. My cat's so funny because I think he smells the testosterone of Leland or something. Not that like Leland's not like, oh, but there's something around when Leland's around, the cat is like on the ground. He's not coming up and cuddling us. He's kind of, and then when Leland's not there, he's like my little shadow. He's like under my legs at the toilet. Yeah. He's like up on my chest. Yeah. And it's like, I think he wants to show that he's like a man around Leland, but when Leland's not there, he's a little baby.
It's literally like a boyfriend. Like when your friends leave, he's like, can you hold me? Yeah. But he's trying to act tough when people are around. Des is a very complicated relationship with my cat Butter, who notoriously only trusts me. She was found in a dumpster in the Bronx. Only loves me, does not fuck with anyone else, like will hide, but like with me on my chest all day.
Yeah.
Des fed her every morning for 6 months before she let him touch her. And now when I'm gone, she will cuddle with him.
Oh, I love that.
He's the only person she'll cuddle with. But when I come back, she pretends she doesn't know who he is. Yeah. And Des was like, we spent all night together. What the hell?
She's gaslighting him.
Yeah, she literally is playing. She's a fuckboy. She's playing mind games with him. But to see Butter accept Des, like she's cool with him, but like she'll obviously sleep with me in the bed than him. But she'll like settle for him when I'm gone, and he knows she's using him for his body.
Cats are great. I have a joke about it on my upcoming special.
Yeah.
But because my cat Wilson at home, who I just adore, and he like even when I was gone for 2 years before I could get the visa to go back, when he lived with me, I would call him and he would meow to let me know he was coming home for his food. So he'd be like meow 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 like across the street. And then he hadn't seen me for 2 years, and I called him, and up the field he was like meow 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 meow. And my dad was like, he literally doesn't do that for anybody else. It's like crazy.
I always say like I love dogs too, and I actually fell in love with Des when he was fostering pit bulls. Like the way he handled those pit bulls, like with such care and patience and passion, I was like, this man can handle me if he can handle this abused pit bull.
Absolutely.
And he had no fear. But I always say that like dogs love people, cats love you.
Oh yeah, they're so much more loyal.
They are the most loyal fucking, and I love that. And that's why like I feel like if I meet a dog, like I could take someone's dog and that dog will never think of you again.
Yeah.
Which like they're just great. And some people are like, that's what I want, just something that's awesome. We're like, if Butter got kidnapped by someone, she would protest. She would like, she would say, give me back to my owner, or like, I don't want to live this life.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to talk to a therapist because that's the love I want.
I mean,
I don't want someone who just loves people.
But isn't it great you can get it from the cat? Like, I think about how much like emotional support I get, all this neediness I get from the cat.
My cat
like,
saved my life for
but
sure.
they are like, they're smart, because my dad was complaining, and this is like the joke I have, but he was complaining that the cat, in like the 7 years he's had him, or 8 years since I've moved, he wasn't like eating any mice, and I'd left him on like the farm, and my dad had thought it'd be a good cat to eat
one
mice.
job.
And then he's like complaining, and then that night my cat ate a mouse in front of him. And well, it was actually in the joke I say in front of him, but it was actually in front of me. But I was still kind of like, this cat is fucking gaslighting my
This cat is smarter. I mean, cats, they joke that cats know their names, but they choose when they want to respond. So it's like, it's not like they're dumb. They just are.
So true.
Butter runs my household.
Yeah, it's so true. Because like, I'll call Madra all the time and he'll come. And then other times I'll be like, Madra. And I'll just look at him and he's just looking at me.
He's like, not today. But that is a point of contention though, because Des is like, I'm a dog person. I like dogs.
And you guys don't have a dog right now.
So the thing is, Butter's not like, she doesn't vibe with a dog. And also having a dog is so hard as a traveling comic.
Yeah.
I would love a little like rescue furry chihuahua that I could just like put in my bag and like bring to all my shows. But I feel like it would be a problem.
It does. No,
What do I do? Leave it with the feature while I'm on stage?
it does look a little mental. I'm pro mental here.
It's giving
so
2000s like Paris Hilton, which is back.
You know, sometimes you see someone bring like a pet places, and you're like, "Are you okay?"
Definitely will be an emotional support animal. Sometimes when you're on the road, though, you're like, "This would be more fun if I had a little animal." With me.
I honestly probably will
Taylor
end up
Swift
bringing
has
my
a little
cat.
backpack.
I'm
Where she
gonna
puts her, if your cat's good at traveling, I say do it.
I know I will probably one day. I was thinking like how nice it must be, especially on the road. You're lonely.
Yeah.
I don't know how with the cat, but we'll see. I'm gonna leash train him. I had like all these bits in my special about how like animal people in New York are like crazy because they have them as like replacement kids, and I've become exactly what. So I'm gonna have to do a new special where I apologize to everybody for the shade I gave.
That's a great way to have two specials. The first one you say stuff, and the second one you apologize for everything you said, and you go, I am the problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, animals are life, and I do want a long term like open like a cat sanctuary or like a pit bull sanctuary.
I will volunteer.
Like, yes,
at the cat one, not the pit bull.
The cat. I know the Des is like very into them, and I got like really into pit bulls.
Yeah, I think I prefer cats because they don't smell, and pit bulls are nice, but they just drool on you, and I'm always like,
well, yeah, there's the smelling thing and the picking up the poop. These are things that cat people don't. Yeah. Cat people are so clean. Like, it's so clean. They're gorgeous. Also, I love to sniff her. I'll snort her. Like, I love the way they smell like maple syrup.
They're so good.
Yeah.
You know, when you were saying before as well about when you and Des got together, and I feel like Des said this like on one of the OG episodes, or maybe he said it on his, I can't remember where he said it.
Yeah.
But he said like one of the things that he like loved about you when you first met is that he was like, I am going to fuck up this story.
Is it the pizza one?
The pizza one. Tell us the pizza
story.
My
God. Oh, of course. Oh my God. This is so fun. I just like gush about the good old days. No, I used to do this a lot though. It was like kind of a line where you really know if the guy is like fucks with you or not, because it doesn't always work. They might be like, this girl's weird, but I like the guy to pay for the date initially. Like, I got ready for the date. If I give you my pussy, like, you can pay for it, and I could get pregnant, so pay me.
Definitely.
I'll let them pay for a couple dates, but I'm very like, I like to eventually pay for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to feel like I'm indebted to people or owe them anything, but I wait for like a very cheap date. Like, I wait for like a coffee, or like in this case we went to get like a slice of pizza. So I like looked at him and I was like, I'll get it. I got this. And he's like, oh, cool. So then I go up and we're standing there and I give my card and I look at the guy and I go, he makes me pay for everything. And the guy starts laughing. Des starts laughing. And I was like, oh, so we kind of have the same sense of humor.
Yeah.
But also what made me fall for him was when I like immediately got in his car. And my dad, like, basically, this was my first date in 7 months, and my dad last second was like, oh, I have a tea time. I'm dropping you off half an hour early to this date. And it's like 95 degrees out. And I'm like, seriously, Dad? Like, you keep telling me like, oh, you're single, what's going on? And I'm like, I finally have a date, and now you have a tea time? And now I have to sit in the 95 degree, whatever.
Is tea time golf?
It's golf. Yeah, he had
Yeah, I
like a
was like,
golfing
oh,
thing.
tea.
Yeah, tea. Let's have some tea and some biscuits. So then I get there and I have to wait like 30 minutes. I'm sweating. I get in his car and the first thing I say is like, my fucking dad. And he looks at me and he goes, at least your parents are alive.
Yeah, but sorry, also Des is a bit older.
No, true. But I just start dying laughing. Like we started off with like the darkest, most morbid sense of humor. And yeah, early on it was just, like we make each other laugh and
Oh, I love this.
Yeah.
I'm so happy. I love love.
I love love too. Yeah. But I was 29, single, in quarantine, living with all these cats and my mom. And I remember her being like, so what do we think is like wrong? And I remember being like, nothing's wrong. Everyone I've met has not been the one. I've like learned a lot about myself. It's not like someone got away.
Yeah.
So like, what is there to worry about?
Yeah.
But I also was really in like Des saw me doing like behind like Nikki Glazer's like Insta story once and was like, oh, she's cute. It was me just doing my thing finally and not like actually decentering men is what I like to say.
But no, it's really true. It's really hard. And especially you had you have an extremely successful career. You know, you do. There's no denying that. Do you know what I mean? And so even when you met him, you were already like a star. Do you know? So like, you had all this stuff, and that can be hard for men. They don't like to be outshone or whatever. Whereas I feel like, and I'm totally putting this in Des's head, so if Des ever listens, I don't know if this is true, but this is what I thought at the time, that I was like, oh, this is the perfect woman for Des, because you're not, but you're also like, he's never going to question if you were going after him because he's, like, you weren't like, it must be hard being like really successful and always questioning, is people just like going after the comic? Are they just liking me because they've watched all my videos?
And Des is so not like,
both of you are like successful. Both of you are going for the person, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, he proposed to me before he ever saw me do stand up, which is risky. What we were thinking, but also some comics off stage are like so comic-y, like always talking about the career, trying to get jokes, like. Him off stage is such a normal person. So like I really met him for really such a person. Our first date, we were talking about tennis. He was telling me, you know, obviously how he speaks Mandarin. I was like, this man is like so much smarter than me. And I like respect his brain. And I never even dated a guy who was older than me. Like I didn't even have like, it wasn't like a thing. I just happened to like fall in love with his brain.
Yeah, I know. He's the
just
smartest
so
person I've ever
nerdy.
met. He was like, we should call the podcast Ganesh or something. And in my head, I was like, cake? And he was like, that's the Irish for sex. And I was like, oh my God, I actually was born in Ireland. This man knows more about Ireland.
The amount of things he says to me, and I'm like, what does that mean? And he's, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, I don't. Look, I can't have everything, okay?
He like fact checked one of my jokes, and he was like, you have to stop saying since 1922 because it was actually 1944. And I was like,
there's so many times I just ask him questions. He's like, can you just Google that? I'm like, why would I Google it when I have a human Google right here that could give me some color with the answer?
And I should say, he didn't say have to stop. He was like, just to let you know. But I was like, that was a polite way of being like, you're totally factually incorrect with this Irish joke.
But what's so funny is our first date was in the Hamptons, and I at the time had a reality TV show based in the Hamptons. So the Hamptons is kind of like, you get seen in the Hamptons. Like it was like where I was filming. So I remember we got in a place in like Sag Harbor, and I remember being like, oh my God, like what if someone recognizes me during this date? Like, because I haven't been outside the house. Like I was being like, what is life like now? Yeah. No one recognized me. And then we were walking back to the car, and some car honks and goes, there's Bishop, Ireland. And I was like, what? Like he got recognized. And first, like, I was like, what the fuck? But I'm not trying to act like I'm not like, I didn't know who Des Bishop was. I was a fangirl because I saw him at the Cellar.
Yeah. Like
6 years ago, and I just was like, who's this hot guy with this low voice and good sense of humor and great head of hair? And he wears suits.
Like, nice outfits
I just remember thinking he's so hot. And then he talked about how he lives in Ireland, and I was like, guess I'll never marry that guy.
This is like,
it's crazy.
That is crazy.
I literally, because also like, let's be honest, there's not a lot of comics you see on stage that I'm like, that's my husband. I was in marketing at the time. I was like 24, saw him on stage. I remember thinking like, what a hottie.
My boyfriend has a similar story that, so like 5 years ago, whenever that storm was that took over like the whole coat.
Oh yeah, like the nor'easter.
Yeah, and I'd gotten like food poison, but I was on stage.
Bad day.
Yeah, I was talking about like how I'd like experienced this food poison during the storm and like the plane having to turn around and all this stuff. And he had said that he had like seen me at a couple of open mics and he had like a crush on me, but he was like, oh, she's like Irish and she'd never be interested. And then he said that I was talking about this food poisoning story and he'd also been food poisoned. So he was like, I'll talk to her about that. And then he said he just bottled it and didn't talk to me. And then like 4 years later or 5 years later, I DM'd him.
Do you remember seeing him around?
I saw him around and like he was like so like just like a kid because he's 5 years younger than me, and he was like he's just like very quiet.
He needed those 4 years to marinate.
Yeah, and dressed like a kid. And then I saw him during the pandemic. We were like late night at New York, and he was just like on stage talking about wanting to have a girlfriend, how he doesn't like to hook up. And I was like, that's all I need to know. And he was like kind of like held himself better and dressed better.
He was just trying to get pussy. He knew you were listening. He's like, I just want to find like the right girl for me. It's really hard out here. I just want to be funny and Irish and like have a good laugh. I don't know. Does anyone know?
He's like, I love Guinness and potatoes.
Love potatoes.
But yeah, no, I love that. That's so amazing.
It is interesting. I always with dating would try to be like, I'm competitive and like a type A personality, so I'd always be like, what do I have to do? What do I have to say? Where do I have to be to find the one? Like I took it like love was just like everything else, like my career or school. Like you just got to work hard and you'll get it. It's not. And also the more you force stuff, like you get yourself in situations that are not healthy for you because you like force something with someone that maybe wasn't right for you because you were like, I need this or I want this. So I feel like it was with Des, it was the first time where like I just was I really was myself. I dealt with a lot of hardship when we first met. Like I wasn't like, it was during COVID. That shit was hard. Reality TV hard. But it's just like there's a natural gravitation that you'll find with the right person.
It's true. And it feels like nearly wrong to say this on a dating podcast, but all these things that give rules and tips, and it's all wrong. It's just like, it's such a fucking fluke.
I would literally be like, okay, what should I say that's so funny in front of him to make him be obsessed with me? I'm going to talk to his ugly friend first, and then he's going to notice me. Like, there are all these strategies when I realized, like, I could have done anything, and Des would have gravitated toward me.
Yeah, once they like it, they like it.
I literally cried when he proposed, and I told my mom, I go, this is the thing I've worked the least at in my life, was my relationship with him. As in, like, I didn't have to try.
Yeah.
And for all the girlies listening who like are dating, it's like, just do you and don't manifest the man. Manifest that like the right energy will be attracted to your authentic energy. And if you're not yourself, you're going to attract the wrong people. And when you are yourself, it's so fucking beautiful. Because when a guy falls in love with you for you, holy fuck.
You're just secure then as well. Because if you were putting on a pretense, then you're insecure in the relationship because you're not being yourself.
And anyone else could act like that.
Yeah.
If he falls in love with you for you and all your fucking like imperfections, no one is out there that is like that. So
because I'm
lean
like,
in.
I'm like, I guess a little neurotic. Like Leland can't be on his phone when we're watching TV because the light distracts my eye, which is fucking crazy.
He doesn't like when I type near him. And I'm like, I'm a working woman, babe.
Yeah, but like Leland will just go, oh yeah, sorry, and he'll just put his phone away, or he'll do like this so it's not on the TV, and it's just nice. He's not like, you're a fucking weirdo. He's just like,
finding
oh, okay.
which demons are like healthy with the other person's demons.
Yeah,
like so, like even stuff that Des does that like some of it makes me laugh, where I feel like in other relationships it could be contentious, where like I think everything he does is so funny, and like I know him deep down, where I know it all comes out of like love and caring, and I like the stuff that makes him quirky.
Yeah.
No,
you know what's when you were saying about mental health as well and everything you were like going through and getting to a good mental health space. So like me and my sister will like, I've talked about stuff and like just like, you know, for different reasons and different diagnoses and different stuff. But like there's been times where we've just been like, oh, like just like struggling. And I'm very happy and present myself as very happy, but that's like a very Irish thing. You don't talk about your mental health, and there's no like I hear people talk about it so openly, but I would never. People just think that I'm okay but I'm like, no, I should be polite. I'm in at the outside world. Yeah. But there's been lots of times with my boyfriend where like I'm having like a depression thing and I'm just like really going through it. and he's just like so supportive and so good. And I like every time I'm like, oh, this is why, because he like really helps with this. Not that he's like a therapist, but he's just like there, and not being like, oh, just look it up or just move on, or like, oh my god, you're an idiot for
Yeah,
thinking
you
this
can't
way.
mask 24/7.
Yeah,
Especially like when you're with a performer, like Des and I, we will turn it on. Like we do shows together. The second we're back in the green room, it's like you're just raw.
Drained.
And sometimes he'll be like, stop talking to people. You don't have to take those photos. You don't have to do this. You just need to rest. And like it gives you the ability to do that. And I also know like, yeah, but he likes to focus a certain way before shows, and like it's you allowing the person to be like raw, because your social battery will run out and you cannot pretend anymore, especially as a performer. I cannot pretend. But girls are really good at masking, like putting on anything to make everyone around us feel more comfortable.
Oh yeah, and that's like as well, I feel like for me, and you're probably the same way, I'm like, oh, if someone, like let's say if Pat walked in here now and he was like in a mood, I can feel the mood.
Oh, for sure.
Which actually makes you good for comedy, because I can read the audience really well. But then in social situations, I have to not like internalize or take personally if someone's like in a bad mood, or have to feel like I gotta be like, are you okay? So that's like something or
you feel like it's your job to make them feel better, and like God forbid they have a bad experience with you when it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, they're just in a bad
But that's
mood.
exhausting, because I'm a sensitive bitch. Like I'm sensitive and I'm hypersensitive about people around me, and you have to find someone whose energy when you're with calms you.
Yeah,
And
that's so important.
If you feel, because I'm actually like, I'm obviously very extroverted, but I don't like socializing that much, especially like big groups. It's really exhausting for me, because I feel like I need everyone to like,
I know.
Get along, and we're all having fun. We're having fun, right? Like I'll be the party.
I know.
But then I need to fucking, like, I will work the room and people are like, she loves it. I'm like, no, I'm going 150 and I'm just sleeping with my cat after this. Because if I serve, I'm going to serve. But after a date or after like a long conversation, if you feel drained after, listen to your gut.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone energizes you, like that's like the right friends, that's the right people. And then you realize life's too short, because we get tired with age. And I'm like, I don't have time to be drained.
It's so true as well. Like I was dating so many guys that were draining me, and then when I started dating Leland, he was so nice and like relaxing and energizing. But then I replaced the guys with like draining friends. And I have some amazing, great friends, but sometimes a person can slip through the cracks and you don't realize, because it's under the guise of a friend.
Yes.
And all of a sudden they're like monopolizing your time. You're exhausted when you're with them. But it's nearly it's a really good important thing that you said friends too, because sometimes we only look at the toxicness in like boyfriends when it's like all relationships, if that's like a family member or a parent or like a friend. And that was something when I finally got over dating toxic men. I was like letting people like take too much of me in friendships, which was like a big lesson to learn.
And you're not a bitch for like kind of like pulling away from that, because maybe there's someone else who will be able to connect with them, or like they're just finding whatever like person will accept the toxicness. Or it's like if that person really knew what they were doing to you, like they wouldn't want you to force, or like they wouldn't want that kind of pain. And even relationships, it's like don't stay with people just because you don't want to make them feel bad. Like they want to be with someone who feels good about them. So sometimes it's like also your gut just tells you stuff. I think with friendships when you're young, it's all about like, do I have friends? And then you have to actively like set up a good friend group, because like the wrong people will easily slip into your life.
And I think like with dating, you can like love bomb and trauma bond, and then like a month in you're like, I love you, and it can be like there's sometimes where that's worked out, but a lot of the time it can be just like a very intense, and then people don't realize that can also happen in friendships. Like, because some of my best friendships are friends that I've had for years and just slowly developed, and we've gotten to know each other. And then I'll have these other friends where you're like telling everything straight away, and then you're like, shit, I don't even know this person.
Wait, that is so right. I feel like friendship love bombing is so similar. Like some people, you have this like crazy connection really early on, and then you realize like you do this with everyone.
And that's the worst, when you're like, this person will be like, you're my best friend, but then they're like, oh, but such and such is my best friend, and you're like, oh, I'm not your best friend. You've just named like 50 people.
My biggest advice for like early dating on, because obviously we've been in New York for a while, we've seen red flags. My biggest red flag is if early on they say they really like you. And when I say early on, I mean like first date, second date, third date. They say they really like you. They talk about your looks.
They've never met someone like you.
They start talking about the future. Like that shit is for real fucked up. Because like Des and I fell in love very, very fast. But like he wasn't first date being like, I really like you, like I want to see our lives together. We just like couldn't stop talking in general, but it was not about the future. And sometimes I'll be like, I want him to tell me like how beautiful and hot I am. And then I realize those guys sometimes are the ones who are the most problematic, because I'm like, why are you saying that? I hate to be like, but it's like, you get a lot of flowers. Did you cheat on me? Like sometimes like if the guy's being too much, I'm like, where'd you get that line from? And how many people are you saying it to?
No, you're so right. All the guys who've done that to me who've been too much and really intense and like that, the flowers straight away, that I've never met anyone like. Do you know how many men who've told me they've never met anyone like me but then not wanted to commit? It is like a universal joke. Leland was the first guy in New York that was like, after 2 weeks, he was going away to a wedding. And then when he came back, he was like, and I was like, oh, I don't want to know if you like kissed anybody. And he was like, oh my God, we like know each other before we started dating. Like in my head, we're exclusive. Like, I don't want you to think that would happen. And I was like, okay, cool. And he goes, well, since we've said we're exclusive, to me that's just a relationship. Can we just say a relationship? And I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool.
Okay, mature king.
I know, right?
Well, I always think like if you feel like, do I have to ask him if you're asking what we are, like it's not it.
Yeah.
Because like you never want to feel like you need to convince someone to be with you. It just happens. Like I don't even remember when Des and I became boyfriend. I mean, we were just like, I joke that like we were married the second we met.
What's it like? Was there like a transition between like, so before you were married versus when you got married? Did it feel different? Or?
Great question. I do feel like after the wedding, first of all, you initially get this like, I want to have kids with this person, which is like so weird, like chemical thing where like the second you're like official and like he's your husband, you're like, I want to make babies with you. And then you're like, I can't take care of myself, so maybe we'll wait a little bit. But there was a sense of calmness.
Yeah.
That like it was, I feel like weddings are still like, it's kind of like patriarchy bullshit to an extent, but like there was a calmness that like we're us now. Like it's just us, and he's my teammate. He's my partner. It's because marriage is less about like who's my like biggest, this love of my life. It's like, who do I want to survive life with?
Yeah, and I know people say like the patriarchal thing and everything, like, but I think at this point for you, it's not like you were like marrying him so you'd feel secure and have a house and like a, and like a sense of like like you are like you were like killing it. You were like, you were very,
I do think I did it my own way.
Yeah.
Because the whole concept, like I came in very feminist. There's a lot of things that you're like, okay, like the whole like wearing the white because you're a virgin, and then like your father handing you off to him, and like the father's asking. I had both my parents walk me. I forgot to even like hug them after because I was like, where do I put the bouquet? Like it was I did it my own way, and I just don't like the concept of like, this is the most amazing thing you've ever done is found a man. It was more just like a celebration of like, wow, when are all of our friends going to be together and family this one time? So I like feel like I love marriage. It depends like the way you put it. I did not like the whole concept. I felt uncomfortable as a bride. Like I love attention, but not that kind of attention.
Yeah. I felt like that on my Debs. I had like a stress rash. Some like the Debs photos all had to go in black and white.
Like me walking down, like, and everyone staring at me and me being like, I'm about to be like connected to a man. It seems so like, I'd rather be talking about blowjobs on a podcast and trying to get people to laugh. It was so like, I'm like, this is not me, you guys. Like my dad is like the funniest guy I've ever met besides Des. We start doing the father-daughter dance, and 30 seconds in, he was like, this is so awkward. Because we just want to like talk. I'm like, what are we doing here? So but we made it like our own, and Des, like, he let me kind of like plan everything. So like the day of, it couldn't have gone smoother, but I also like looking back, I'm like, we could have eloped. Like we could have saved a lot of money and eloped, but it's memories that we'll never forget.
Yeah, exactly. And like, when else are you gonna wear a white dress?
True. But also it was not the kind of thing that I was like, oh, I wish I could do it next weekend. It was like, we survived. Thank you. It all went well. Everyone had a great time. We have photos. We'll put it up in a frame.
My stepmom was kind of like a badass. She didn't wear a white dress, and she wore a dress that she had already. It was like this gorgeous turquoise dress.
That's iconic.
Isn't that so cool?
That's iconic. Yeah. I mean, there's certain things that you're like, why do you do it? And if you read the history, you're like, okay, not necessary.
Yeah. She was like, your dad was like divorced. I'm not gonna wear a white dress. I think something like that.
I switched like where the groom stands because it wasn't my good side. I'm like, I don't want tons of pictures of my bad side. Like I'm not doing that. And we actually had an Irish American judge, Bernie Graham, who I grew up with, and he had like once like rescued me. I was like almost drowning in the ocean when I was little, and he like rescued me from the ocean, and we were like getting married on the ocean, and it was like this beautiful, and he was so funny. Also, our friends are crazy, so like during the ceremony, people were like heckling us, like laughter, like it felt like we were at a comedy show. Like it couldn't have been more.
It sounds a bit like as well, like Casey and Robbie's wedding seemed like God. So like comedy, like fun.
Yeah, it's just you have to make it yours. Yeah. So I weddings, it was a good experience, even though I know that like we didn't need to go full out with the wedding. But I'm glad that we did.
I know I've said that to my boyfriend that I wouldn't mind if we just like eloped, but.
Had like a beautiful dinner or something.
Yeah, but no, he wants to have a party with his friends. And I've been like, oh, I'd love to do it in Ireland. And he's like, no, New York. Because like,
or both.
A lot of the friends are poor. Yeah, his family were like, we'd also go to Ireland. But yeah, it's like, it's just a fun thing to celebrate. I don't want to be like out like 50 grand or whatever because I don't have that.
No, literally. But getting married in Ireland would have been so fucking cool. We took like engagement photos in Ireland.
But the fact that a cat chose you in Ireland as well, by the way, automatically makes you an Irish girly, as you say.
I talked about this yesterday. You guys don't understand. Where did we go again? What was it called?
I can't remember.
It was like a meditation center.
It was like green. And
it was the most gorgeous cliff. Des is going to be mad that I forgot.
Not Moher?
He was, what'd you say?
Cliffs of Moher? No.
It was like.
Is it Cork? Probably Cork.
I have no fucking clue. I'm so bad with directions. Also, he was getting mad because I kept falling asleep in the car. Whenever I'd fall asleep, it would rain. And then when I'd wake up, it wouldn't be raining. And I'm like, Ireland has the best weather. What are you talking about? And he's like, you keep sleeping. Because, it's like raining every 30 minutes. And I was like, just the rain. Anyway, I think it's so fucking beautiful. The color green, it's never been more green. This cat starts following us. And obviously, I'm like, stop all our plans. We need to pet this cat. And the cat just climbs onto my back and walks with me. And I'm like, so this is my cat now. Yeah, we walk all over. Then at one point, like I think we put the cat down and the cat, we tried to go somewhere and the cat would just be following us. Her name is Moxie. Shout out to Moxie. We miss this cat every day.
I love it. So before we wrap up, I have a couple of things that I wanted to ask. Oh, really quickly, what's your ick?
Oh my God. My ick. Oh my God. If you could see the white on guys' nails.
Oh yeah, I hate when you can see. Sometimes I see a guy doing a TikTok and I can see like his like fingernail is long. Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, you're feminine. It's more like, oh, so you think it's Saw 3 when you finger people.
You think it's what? What did you say?
Saw 3. I don't even know. Yeah, Saw 3. It's like a horror movie.
Oh, Saw 3. Gross. No.
But it's like you clearly like have some respect.
No, I want a guy who has like a condition where he like they're like.
Yeah, I want it down to the nub.
Yeah,
I want down to the bone.
And then two things. So firstly, a guy from Patreon, Kurt, asked ask Hannah what gives her the most joy, satisfaction about her comedic work. It's very deep.
Oh my God. Okay, Kurt. Okay, Zadie. I like to make people question things of how things are, and I like to say things that like women are afraid to say and then normalize it.
Yeah, that's great.
Like I'm recently on this thing where I like talk about how like I'm jealous of bald men because it's so like shiny and beautiful, and how like my pussy doesn't look like that, and like I'm always ingrown hairs, razor burns, because I used to have like I couldn't even wear bikinis at one point because like I would play a lot of tennis and the friction, I don't know, but I'd have the worst bikini line ever. And as I started talking about it and then people were laughing, I'm like, that means you've experienced this. Yeah. So I'm normalizing not having like a glass pussy.
I think it's so great because your stuff is very like, even the question. So it's so funny that you did the hand on the streets, you do the man on streets.
Yes, which you were amazing. You crushed it.
I had so much fun. But it's crazy because you were asking me like really like, let's say like sexual questions, and I'm answering the way I would. Whereas like 10 years ago, I would have like also just answered like no, like, or maybe let's say even like, maybe not 10 years ago, but definitely when I first moved to America and I started talking about sex and like learning about it because of comedy and stuff, then I would go out to like maybe like an Irish group of friends and just openly be like talk about, and they like I definitely get like a bit of side eye sometimes.
Yeah,
different with my Latin friends because they're like so funny and like
they're just
really
naked everywhere.
Yeah, they're like yeah, of course. But now it's like people are seeing that, or even like people messaging me from home being like, I can't believe you're talking about this on the podcast. And then and some people were like, oh, it's so great that you're talking about this on the podcast. But it's just funny that you're making it normal. So people are like, oh, that's so great that you were on that. And it's so great that you said that.
Well, Katie,
like,
your video is the biggest video I've ever posted with over 30 million views. And you're the first person where it means that they like were into that answer because they like stayed with the video.
Of the rugby hat.
Exactly. Lots of rugby fans out there. I'm big in the rugby demo. But I do think that it's kind of like White Collar Daddy did well. It's because it was like these two hot girls talking about sex and that never been done before. People love to put women in boxes. Like, she's the hot one. She's the messy one. She's the sad one. Mm-hmm. She's the anxious one. She's the whore. And like, I want to show that women can be multifaceted. So I think it's to show like, if I'm on stage, I feel like you had to be like, I'm the ugly best friend who just talks about pussy. When it's like, no, I'm main character energy. Yeah. I'm fucking confident in my shit. But I'm also depressed. I'm anxious. I have issues. I have problems with my bikini line. So I want girls to like lean into that multifacetedness. And I think that video did so well because it was like normal, confident girls on the street saying funny things about like if they shave their cooch.
Yeah.
And I think like, that gets me off. Like, that makes me so happy to make women feel, because I think it's empowering. It's empowering when you're taking up space. So I'm honestly just like trying to take up as much space as I can and just fill it with like women.
No, absolutely.
That was insane, but like, I'm a feminist commune.
No, that makes sense. And I think as well, it's the one thing that every single woman can agree that they have an insecurity is about, should I shave my pussy? Should I not shave my pussy? Is my pussy ugly? It's like, oh, is this a smell? It's like, so it's really great.
And we all realize that it's all over the place. There's no one right answer. It's like, honestly, how you own it and being comfortable in your own skin. Because all you guys had different answers, but all of them were great.
And men... And if
they're lucky to be there.
Men don't give a fuck, and if you're having sex with women, they definitely don't give a fuck. So it's like it's just all in our own
women,
head.
You're orgasming all the time.
Yeah,
so
the only time I remember it's so funny. The only time someone was like ew was like a gay guy, and he's not fucking me.
Well, yeah, they should be disgusted by us.
Yeah, exactly.
That's called you're not attracted to me.
Okay, before we go, wait, I wanted, because you were saying about being an Irish girl, so I wanted to run these things by you really quickly. So if you're in Ireland and you're an Irish girl, how should you take a compliment?
You don't accept it, or you like say something mean back to them.
Or you can always say penny son.
Penny son. Thanks, Emil.
Okay.
I'm feeling grand.
What else? Do you drink tea?
Yes.
If you do, would you be Barry's or Lions?
Oh, okay. Now you're trying to get me canceled. I have no idea. Lions.
Oh my God, I'm Lions too, but I'm about to get cancelled as well for this. Leland is Barry's, which is so cute.
Okay, drama.
I know. And then what are if you have kids, would you guys raise them in an Irish way?
Des definitely would.
Okay, so then you
no affection.
You don't hit your kids, but you can definitely threaten them with the wooden spoon.
Threaten them for sure. We're threatening them.
Well, did you guys have the wooden spoon they would pull out the wooden spoon?
Des jokes that he was hit growing up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Literally the traditional like timeout. Yeah, I was always put in a timeout. I was always in the corner of my room.
My dad does timeout with my brothers and sisters.
They do the countdown. They go 5, 4, 3, and like you're always like you'd wait till my dad would be like 2.5. 1 3/4, and then you'd be like, fine, and you'd like go. Yeah. But I would try to escape my room. I was naughty. My mom put soap in my mouth before. That was the only physical interaction. Because she said I had a, which honestly, she should still.
She'd run out of soap with Des or any Irish person. Yeah, my dad once forgot about my brother, and it was so funny. He had him in like he put them on the naughty step, and they were just like chilling in the kitchen, and it was like at least an hour, and then he was like, Jesus, I forgot about John. He was like, okay. You're good now, come in.
My parents used to play the quiet game because we were so loud and annoying, but we were very competitive. So my brother and I would play the silent game where it's whoever talks first loses. So we'd go hours just like, and it was honestly the most genius thing. But to wrap it up, it comes full circle because about being like a female comic and being gross. My dad once was like recently pulled aside by this guy in like his 20s being like, hey, I see your daughter online, like YouTube, TikTok. And he's like, how do you feel about it? And my dad was like, what do you mean? Because also my dad has been my coach through tennis. Like he just wants me to be happy.
Yeah.
All he wants is for me to be happy. And he's like, what do you mean? And he's like, he says, she's kind of gross. And my dad literally laughs. My dad's a feminist icon, but my dad laughs and he's like, where do you think she gets it from? Like, she's my daughter, you know? And like, yeah, she's gross, but it's hilarious. And like, I think like if I was a dude, he would never pull my dad aside.
No. And it wouldn't be gross. It's only gross because a woman. Lads literally were like, oh, I jerked off into this cup of tea or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And then a woman's just like, how should we shave our vagina? And they're like, ew.
And you know what? Hopefully in 5 years, like, it won't be considered gross, a woman doing that stuff. And also, I don't even consider myself like that dirty of a comedian.
No, you're not. And like,
We have cat jokes.
Yeah, and Des, as he says, we should never call it dirty because I'd always be like, oh, I have a dirty bit. And he's like, don't be calling it dirty. It's like, it's just material.
Don't call it dirty, just do your thing, Katie.
Yeah. It's so funny.
He has like JV football coach energy all the time.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it. Let's wrap it up. Okay, so you have your Burning in Hell podcast.
Yes.
And you have your Giggly Squad?
Giggly Squad is my best friend, us making fun of everything. And Burning in Hell is more interviews, mental health. I actually just had Barbara Corcoran on, which is crazy.
The girl from Shark Tank.
Yeah, she's incredible.
Oh my God.
That episode's coming out. And then go to hannahburn.com for tickets to shows coming up.
Will you be performing in Ireland soon?
I really hope. I think I'm going to do like I call it a European moment, but like I need to go to Ireland and perform. I want to perform in Dublin, Cork. I want to do it all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that'd be amazing. So yeah, everybody make sure and go.
Keep an eye out.
Yeah, I'd say follow, but they're already following you. So. There's so many guests here that I'm like, you're already, it's, like last week was Jared Fried. I'm like, you're already following them. But so Patreon/The Shift Podcast. Also, Pat's info will be in the description as usual. And yeah, I love you. Thanks for doing this.
God, I love you too. Thanks. This is so much fun.
Right?
Deep, funny, cute.
Yeah. We talked about cats. We talked about pussy hair. We talked about love.
Yes. We've solved all the world's problems.
Yeah. Okay. So love you all. Rate, review. Don't forget. Okay. And thanks. Bye.